And welcome back, everybody. Hands on Apologetics. We're chatting with Mark McNeil, by the way, the author of All in the Name, which is available through shop.catholic.com, about the Trinity. And actually, we're talking about St. Thomas Aquinas and the need to baptize Aristotle. And right before the break, Mark, you were just diving into how Aristotle understood knowledge, that we can look at material things and, in a sense, pull out things from it. And I'll let you pick up from there. I don't want to
Sure. Yeah, it's
misrepresent.
kind of a complicated idea, but the gist of it, or where I was going with it, was this, that Aristotle thinks that all these sciences like physics and mathematics and metaphysics, which are the three primary basic ones for him, they begin, first of all, with sense experience, but our minds are able to pull out what's implied in our sense experience and reach beyond it. And so at the end of his work on physics, Aristotle discovers, through the process of reasoning about the world, the existence of God. And he comes to the conclusion that there must be a prime mover, there must be a first source of, or ground of, all the motions or actualizations that we see happening in the world around us. The argument he uses for that is similar to Aquinas' first way that he uses to argue for the existence of God. So putting that aside, what Aristotle gets to at the end of the day is a reality that transcends matter, that is the ground of all matter and motion, but it itself is beyond it. And he talks a little bit about what must be true of this reality. This first reality that we will call God must be self-explained. It must be the absolutely first reality. It must be eternal. It must be uncaused. It must be self-existent. All those things must belong to this reality. And everything else in the universe is moving or being actualized because it's attracted to this first reality. That everything in the universe that's happening is happening because it's being pulled by it to be actualized. Like, for example, the tides of the ocean are happening because of the gravitational relationship of the Earth to the Moon. It's a little bit like that for Aristotle with God, that everything in the world is happening because it's being drawn to perfect being, or to the first mover that everything is attracted to. Now, if that makes some sense, then we can get to the real crucial points here of difference with St. Thomas, and that are two things. One is Aristotle's conception of God. There's a lot of what I just said about God that we can say, wow, that's compatible with Catholic faith. I mean, that's a lot of that stuff about God being eternal and uncaused and the absolutely first reality and the ultimate reason why anything is happening at all. That all makes sense to us. But Aristotle went on to say that other things must be true about God. For example, God, because God is absolutely perfect mind, not matter, absolutely perfect mind, only thinks absolute perfection, which is himself. So God can't be aware of you or me, or all these little imperfect things in the world, because God is completely absorbed within himself, thinking absolute perfection. And so for Aristotle, God doesn't know about us. Now, this is obviously problematic from a Christian standpoint, because we believe God knows us perfectly. The second big problem that arises from this is Aristotle thinks that the motions of the universe have been happening forever, that the universe is eternal, that there's no beginning to it. You need God, because if there were no God, then matter would just be forever unactualized, that there would never nothing would happen. It would just be like a pool of unactualized energy, that nothing would ever happen to it. And so for Aristotle, God is essential to explain anything that ever happens. And secondly, that God that explains everything that happens is totally closed in upon himself. Now, I don't want to run out of time before I can share how Aquinas responds to these things. So okay. Aquinas looks at what Aristotle says about God, and he says, well, he made a mistake here. And here's the mistake: that God, for sure, God knows himself perfectly. But if God knows himself perfectly, then God must also know all of those things that he actualizes perfectly. God must know everything that is an effect of himself perfectly. So in knowing himself, God knows everything, because everything depends on God in the most radical sense. And Aquinas is going to go far beyond Aristotle in demonstrating that point that I just made. Maybe someday we can talk about that, about how Aquinas shows that the creatures of this world radically depend upon the Creator in a way that Aristotle never envisioned. and couldn't see.